My fiancée texted me she found someone else and ended our relationship instantly. I removed her from my finances, canceled everything, and sent her a $100,000 invoice. Now her lawyer is calling me nonstop. I, 31 male, run a logistics consulting firm and until recently was engaged to the most ungrateful, delusional woman on the planet. Started my business when I was 25 with nothing but a used ThinkPad and crushing anxiety about whether I'd end up living in my car. My startup plan: step 1, do not die. Step 2, maybe profit. First few years were brutal. 80-hour weeks, ramen noodles for every meal, sleeping on my brother Diego's couch because rent money went back into the business. Diego, 34 male, works construction and has zero filter when it comes to giving his opinion about my life choices. When I told him I was starting a consulting business, his exact words were, "Bro, you're going to consult people on how to be broke because that's the only thing you're an expert at right now." Coming from a guy who once used duct tape as a car window that hit harder than it should have. But about 2 years ago, everything clicked, landed some massive contracts. Turns out optimizing supply chains actually pays crazy good money. Diego's response to my first big paycheck: "Well darn, maybe you do know something after all. Do not let it go to your head, nerd." Now I'm pulling serious cash. Like, do not even look at prices anymore. Money. Enough to finally get my own place, adopt my dog Pickles, and finish the project Diego and I had been working on for 3 years. Restoring a 1967 Chevy Impala. Found it rusted out in some guy's backyard, and Diego convinced me we could bring it back to life. That car became our weekend therapy. Nothing like inhaling paint fumes and arguing over carburetors to really bond two emotionally repressed men. Diego handling the bodywork, me obsessing over the engine specs. Took us almost 4 years, but now she's absolutely perfect. Midnight blue paint, chrome bumpers, and a 327 small block that purr like a very large, very angry cat. Pickles is a golden retriever who's about as smart as a box of rocks but twice as lovable. The shelter said he was special and needed someone with patience. Turns out special meant he once got his head stuck in a cereal box and just accepted his fate instead of backing out. Honestly, same. That dog and I share the same brain cell, and it's usually on break. I met my now ex-fiancée Anita, 28, female, 6 years ago. She was working as a receptionist at some stuffy law firm but dreaming of being an art curator. Girl knew everything about Renaissance painters, could talk for hours about exhibition design, had this whole vision of working at prestigious galleries. Problem was, dreams do not pay student loans. She was incredible back then, smart, passionate, could make me care about some dead artists' brush techniques when my idea of culture was watching The Office reruns. When I first introduced Anita to Diego, he pulled me aside and said, "She's way too pretty for you." What's the catch? Classic Diego. Pickles, meanwhile, immediately loved her because she gave him half her sandwich without being asked. But here's where it gets interesting. About a year into dating, I made her a deal. Quit that soul-crushing job. Focus on your art history degree. Take unpaid internships. Network your butt off. I'll handle the money. Here's the key part, Reddit. I was not just being some generous sugar daddy. I'm a businessman. When I invest in something, I document it. Every major expense, every education payment, every career-building opportunity I funded, I had her sign loan agreements. Nothing crazy, just simple contracts stating the amounts and that they'd be repaid. Honestly, it was less about trust and more about making sure I did not end up like those dudes on Legal Advice paying off their ex's Pilates certification. She signed everything without even reading them. It's just a formality, babe. We're going to be together forever. She thought it was sweet that I was being official about our partnership. Some people write love letters. I wrote enforceable contracts with interest rates. Now here's where one of the main characters in this disaster enters the story. Anita's best friend, Brooklyn. Yes, that's her real name. And yes, she's exactly what you'd expect from someone named Brooklyn. Think green hair, nose ring, and the kind of person who says yikes. Unironically, Brooklyn was getting her master's in gender studies and had opinions about everything, especially men and money. Brooklyn hated me from day one, not because I was a bad guy, but because, in her worldview, any man was automatically part of the problem. She'd make these passive-aggressive comments during group dinners about late-stage capitalism and financial privilege while simultaneously ordering the most expensive thing on the menu that I was obviously paying for. Diego met Brooklyn exactly once. His assessment: that girl has more red flags than a communist parade. The best part, Brooklyn lived in a studio apartment that her parents paid for while she pursued her academic passion. But somehow, I was the problematic one for supporting my fiancé's dreams. We got engaged last year after 5 years together. I proposed at this gallery opening she'd been excited about for months. Had the ring custom made with a sapphire because she said diamonds were basic. Cost me $15,000, but seeing her face was worth it. Brooklyn's reaction to the engagement. I hope you know what you're getting into, Anita. Marriage is a patriarchal institution designed to control women's autonomy. Diego's take on the proposal, 15 grand for a rock, I could buy a truck for that. But hey, at least now you'll have something to repo when this goes south. For 6 years, I built what I thought was our future together. Once Anita quit her job, she fully embraced the lifestyle upgrade. First was the apartment situation. Her studio was embarrassing, according to her. So I found this sick downtown loft, exposed brick floor to ceiling windows, the works, $3,200 a month, signed a loan agreement for the security deposit, and first year's rent, $25,000 total. Diego helped me move some furniture to the new place. His comment while carrying a $3,000 designer coffee table. This table costs more than my truck, and my truck actually does something useful. Pickles was fascinated by the new apartment mainly because he kept trying to fetch his tennis ball off the exposed brick walls and could not understand why it would not bounce back. Then came the car. I cannot show up to gallery events on the bus, she said. Fair point. We got her a BMW X3 $580 monthly payment. Another loan agreement since her credit was non-existent. I co-signed. She signed the loan doc. $15,000 over the lease term. Diego's reaction when he saw the BMW. Nice ride. Too bad she'll probably crash it into a Starbucks while texting about art feelings. The funny thing is, she always complained about my Impala taking up garage space at her apartment complex. It's just sitting there, she'd say. Why do not you sell it and get something practical? Should have been a red flag right there. The wardrobe upgrade was next level. Art World is all about image, so I gave her a $1,500 monthly clothing allowance. Nordstrom Saks boutique shops that sold $300 scarves over 6 years, probably $40,000 in clothes and accessories. Education costs were the biggest art history master's degree, specialized courses, conference attendance, networking events, $35,000 total, all documented and signed. Brooklyn was a constant presence during all this, and her commentary was something else. She'd come over to Anita's luxury apartment and lecture me about wealth inequality and how problematic it is that you can just throw money around while people are struggling. When I mentioned Brooklyn's visits to Diego, he said, "Let me get this straight. She comes to the apartment you pay for, eats the food you bought, uses the Wi-Fi you pay for, and then lectures you about money problems. That's some next-level audacity right there." When I pointed out that her parents were literally funding her entire graduate school experience, she said that was completely different because it was family money, not transactional relationship dynamics. Anita's sister Megan was equally toxic, but in a different way. 2 years older than Anita and somehow even more entitled. Megan worked some made-up job at a startup that sold overpriced candles or something equally useless, but acted like she was running Goldman Sachs. Diego met Megan at a family dinner once. His verdict, that one's got main character syndrome. Bet she asked to speak to managers at McDonald's, but Megan was not just commenting. She was asking for favors too. Since you're already covering Anita's car payment, could you help me with mine? Just until my startup takes off. I always said no, which made Brooklyn go on rants about male financial control tactics. Anita's lifestyle was insane. Organic everything from Whole Foods, art supplies, from boutique shops, gym membership at this place that had a spa and served free smoothies, meal kit delivery that cost more than most people's grocery budget. Weekend trips to art shows in other cities, always flying, always staying at nice hotels. Brooklyn would tag along on these trips sometimes. For 5.5 years, this worked. Anita was building connections, gaining experience, getting closer to her dream job. Brooklyn kept poisoning the well with her feminist theory. Nonsense, but I figured it was just background noise. Looking back, I realized Brooklyn was probably in Anita's ear the whole time, telling her she deserved better and that I was using financial leverage to control her. Tuesday was supposed to be special. 6-year anniversary of our first date, and I'd planned something perfect, made reservations at this exclusive restaurant she'd been wanting to try for months. The kind of place where you need connections just to get a table. I'd also bought her this stunning sapphire bracelet to match her engagement ring. Spent 3 hours picking it out. Left work early around 4:00 p.m. to surprise her. Maybe we could grab coffee, talk about the future, just spend time together before dinner. Got to her apartment and she was not there. No big deal. Probably at some gallery event or meeting with her advisor. I figured I'd wait, maybe order some appetizers for when she got back. At 7:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Anita. I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. Do not contact me. One text. 6 years, thousands of dollars, an engagement ring, a future we'd planned together, ended with a text that was shorter than most grocery lists. I sat there staring at my phone for probably 15 minutes. My first instinct was to call, immediately demand an explanation, ask what the heck was happening, who was this someone else? How long had this been going on? What about our engagement, our plans? But then my business brain kicked in. Her message was crystal clear. Nothing more to do with you. Plus, do not contact me was not asking for space or a break. This was complete termination of our relationship. So I texted back, as you wish. I immediately called Diego. Dude, I need to crash at your place tonight. What happened? I read him the text. There was a long pause then. Holy. After 6 years and all that money, she breaks up with you via text. You dodging a bullet, bro. I put my phone on silent, opened my laptop, and did what I do best. Solved a complex logistical problem. I was not just hurt. I was about to become her worst nightmare. Yeah, I was not Batman. I was Bruce Wayne with receipts. Here's where my business background really paid off. When you run a consulting firm, you learn to separate emotions from practical execution. This was just another project requiring efficient resolution. First priority, credit cards. Logged into my banking portal and removed Anita as an authorized user from both cards. Deactivation was immediate. Any cards in her wallet were now just expensive plastic. Next, the BMW payment was due in 4 days, canceled automatic payment immediately. She could figure out how to cover $580 monthly or deal with repossession. Since I co-signed, they'd eventually come after me, but I'd handle that later. Her apartment lease was entirely in my name since her credit could not qualify her for a studio apartment, let alone a downtown loft. Found the termination clause, 60 days notice plus 2 months penalty. Drafted termination email and sent it with timestamp. All the subscriptions and services. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium, that boutique gym membership, meal kit delivery, organic grocery delivery, art supply subscriptions, changed passwords and canceled everything. Phone line on my family plan, initiated removal process. Next priority, the wedding. We had our date set for October, venue booked, caterer confirmed, photographer paid, the whole 9 yards. I called every vendor and canceled everything. Lost almost $18,000 in non-refundable deposits, but that was better than the $45,000 total cost of marrying someone who wanted nothing more to do with me. Diego was helping me make some of the cancellation calls. After I hung up with the florist, he said 18 grand down the drain. At least you're not married to her yet. The engagement ring was trickier. That $15,000 custom sapphire was legally mine until we actually got married. Conditional gift under state law. I called my lawyer about it first thing. Simple, Phil said. Engagement rings are conditional gifts. No marriage, no permanent gift. You have every legal right to demand its return. I sent Anita a formal letter requesting immediate return of the ring. Her response was predictable. You gave this to me, it's mine. I'm not giving back something that represents your commitment to me. Phil's filed a civil action for return of property. Judge ruled in our favor within 2 weeks. Anita had to surrender the ring or face contempt charges. Got my ring back. Sold it to the jeweler for $12,000. Still a loss, but better than letting her keep it. Then came the special part. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out every single loan agreement Anita had signed over 6 years. Had them all organized chronologically with payment records and interest calculations. Total amount owed $115,000. I spent 2 hours drafting a formal debt collection letter. Listed every loan with dates, amounts, and current balances, including 6% annual interest as specified in the agreements. Attached copies of every signed document. The letter was professional, cold, and absolutely devastating. Demanded full repayment within 30 days, or I'd begin formal collection proceedings, including credit reporting and potential wage garnishment. Sent it via certified mail to her apartment. The whole process took about 3 hours. When I finished, I felt satisfied. Diego watched me work through the whole thing. His final assessment. Bro, you just turned a breakup into a business transaction. That's either genius or psychotic. Probably both. The silence lasted exactly 1 week. I figured she was probably living it up with her new man, thinking she'd successfully upgraded from me to someone better. Boy, was she wrong. Friday afternoon, my phone exploded. I imagine Nordstrom was not ready for the meltdown of a declined princess swipe. Someone somewhere definitely got a show. Text after text after text. What the heck did you do to my cards? I'm at Nordstrom and my card got declined. This is humiliating. You cannot just cut someone off without warning. We were engaged. I never said I did not love you. I just needed space to figure things out. You're being a vindictive. This is not how adults handle breakups. Then the tone shifted to pure delusion. I deserve better than someone who would do this to me. And finally Russell says, What you're doing is financial abuse. He's going to help me get a lawyer. Ah, Russell, the mysterious someone else. Now I had a name. I did not respond to her. Why would I? She wanted nothing more to do with me, right? I was just respecting her wishes. Monday brought the real fireworks. She called me 17 times. 17, I let every single call go to voicemail. The messages started pleading, then confused, then absolutely unhinged. You're ruining my life. I have commitments. People expecting me at events. My internship coordinator wants to know why I missed the gallery meeting. What am I supposed to tell them? Russell thinks you're probably breaking laws. Financial abuse is a real crime. My sister says you're just bitter and trying to punish me for being honest about my feelings. Tuesday afternoon, certified mail receipt, confirmed delivery of my debt collection letter. Wednesday morning, my phone rang at 6:00 a.m. Unknown number, you psycho. Anita's voice absolutely screaming. $100,000. Are you out of your mind? I hung up and blocked the number, but the real entertainment started Thursday evening. I was at Diego's place when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Brooklyn standing there with what looked like a notebook and pen. Diego looked out the window. Is that the green-haired communist? This should be good. I opened the door and she immediately launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech. I am disgusted by you, she announced, reading from her notebook. What you're doing to Anita is textbook financial abuse and emotional manipulation. I just stared at her. Are you reading that from notes? This is not a joke. You're destroying a woman's life because your fragile male ego cannot handle rejection. So when your parents pay for your apartment, car, phone, groceries, tuition, and spring break trips, that's family support. But when I support my fiancé's career dreams with documented loans, that's financial abuse. Yes. Because you're using money to control her choices. I could not help but laugh. Brooklyn, you literally live in an apartment your parents pay for, drive a car they bought you, and use a credit card they fund. How is that different from what Anita had with me? Because my parents do not expect me to have sex with them, she screamed. Neither did I said calmly. I expected her to honor the loan agreements she signed. Brooklyn was practically vibrating with rage. You think you owned her because you paid for things? No, I think she owes me because she signed contracts saying she'd pay me back if we broke up. Brooklyn slammed her notebook shut. This conversation is over. You're clearly too toxic and manipulative to see what you're doing. But karma is real and you're going to get what's coming to you. She stormed off to her parents' Honda Civic and peeled out. I went back inside and Diego was grinning ear to ear. Dude, that was incredible. She brought notes to argue with you. Friday morning brought an email from Robert J. Bobby, attorney at law, with the subject urgent cease harassment of Miss Anita Vance. Bobby's email was pure amateur hour. Lots of threatening language about predatory lending practices and financial coercion, but zero actual legal substance. Demanded I immediately cease all collection activities and restore Miss Vance's financial access. I forwarded it to my attorney, Mr. Phils, who'd handled my business contracts for years. Dude has the energy of a man who's been sued by his own HOA and came out with the deed. His response was swift and brutal. He sent Bobby copies of every single loan agreement with Anita's signatures clearly visible, along with bank records showing all transfers. His letter basically said your client signed valid contracts and received valuable consideration. The loans are legitimate and enforceable. Diego read Bobby's email over my shoulder. This guy calls himself a lawyer. I've seen better legal arguments in YouTube comments. Meanwhile, the consequences were hitting Anita hard. Her BMW got repossessed from the gallery parking lot during some networking event. Apparently, Russell tried to intervene, telling the repo guys he was handling the situation and they needed to show some respect. They told him to move or get arrested. Anita had to start taking Ubers everywhere, which was eating into whatever money Russell was providing. Speaking of Russell, I started doing some research on this guy. Turns out Russell was a mid-level real estate agent who sold himself as some big-shot developer. His Instagram was full of photos with expensive cars that were not his, and job sites where he was probably just doing showings. Classic fake it till you make it wannabe. But Russell was apparently all in on playing white knight. He started posting on social media about predatory men who use money to control women and standing up for what's right. Diego's reaction to Russell's Instagram. This guy's more fake than a $3 bill. Look at this photo. That's not even his car. You can see the dealer plates. Brooklyn was sharing all of Russell's posts with long captions about toxic masculinity and economic violence. Her Instagram became a daily lecture series about my supposed crimes against womankind. The best part was when Anita's sister Megan decided to get involved. She sent me a long, rambling email about how I was destroying an innocent woman's life and how real men do not abandon their responsibilities. Megan's email was peak entitlement. Anita gave you 6 years of her life. She supported your career by being the perfect partner. You owe her for emotional labor and opportunity costs. I forwarded Megan's email to Diego. His response was immediate: emotional labor. What's next? Charging you for breathing the same air. But Brooklyn was not done with her activism. She organized what she called a support circle for Anita. Basically a group of her grad school friends who would sit around validating each other's victim narratives. They started a private Facebook group called Supporting Survivors of Financial Abuse, where they shared articles about economic domestic violence and posted screenshots of my threatening debt collection letter. The property management company confirmed Anita's eviction date. She had 30 days to get out of the apartment. Russell was apparently promising to find her something even better, but given his actual financial situation versus his Instagram persona, that seemed unlikely. The real entertainment started when we scheduled her belongings pickup. Just like before, I hired neutral movers and required Bobby's supervision to ensure she only took personal items. But this time, Anita brought the whole crew: Russell, Megan, Brooklyn, and some other guy Megan introduced as her business partner. Brooklyn showed up with a sign that said financial abuse is domestic violence, and started live streaming the whole thing on Instagram. Diego could not come to the moving day, he had work. But when I told him about Brooklyn's protest sign, he lost it. She made a sign. What's next? A megaphone. Moving day was supposed to be simple. Anita gets her personal stuff, leaves my property, and we never see each other again. But when you're dealing with delusional, entitled people aided by a wannabe activist with a smartphone, nothing is ever simple. The crew arrived at 10 a.m. Brooklyn immediately started her commentary for Instagram. We're here to document the ongoing financial abuse perpetrated by a toxic male who thinks he owns women. Russell tried to take charge, introducing himself to the movers as the new man in charge here and explaining that they'd be taking some additional items beyond what's on the list. The lead mover, a no-nonsense guy named Billy, just looked at Bobby and asked, "Is this clown authorized to make decisions?" Bobby confirmed that only items on the pre-approved list could be removed. Russell's face went red. That's ridiculous. Anita has been living here for years. Brooklyn started recording Russell's little speech. This is exactly what we're talking about. The patriarchal assumption that men get to decide what women deserve. That's when Anita started her performance. She walked through the apartment, pointing at everything like she was conducting an auction. This bookshelf was chosen specifically for my art books. That desk was for my studies. Billy was not having it. "Ma'am, if it's not on my list, it does not leave this apartment." Brooklyn got in Billy's face with her phone. "Sir, you're participating in economic violence against a woman." Billy just stared at her. "Lady, I feel like you need to step back before I call the cops." Megan decided to escalate. "This is theft. You're stealing from a woman who gave 6 years of her life to this man." 6 years of her life, I said. "You mean 6 years of me paying for her life?" Brooklyn spun around with her phone. There he is, the financial abuser himself. "I'm not destroying anything," I said calmly. "I'm collecting on legitimate debt." "Debt does not exist in relationships," Brooklyn screamed into her phone. "Love is not transactional." "You're right," I said. "Love is not transactional, but loans are. That's literally what makes them loans." Russell stepped forward like he was going to intimidate me. This guy was maybe 5 feet 8 in and looked like he'd never been in a real fight in his life. "You need to step back and let us handle this situation." I almost laughed. "Handle what situation?" "You cannot even handle your own car payments based on your credit report." "Oh yeah." I'd run a credit check on Russell. Credit score of 580. 3 late car payments in the last 6 months. Maxed out credit cards. Brooklyn was practically hyperventilating. "You ran a credit check." "That's stalking. It's public information," I said. "Anyone can run a credit check with basic personal details." "You're a predator," she shrieked. That's when Anita completely lost it. She started screaming about how I was destroying her life out of spite and how Russell is twice the man you'll ever be. She grabbed the custom bookshelf and tried to drag it toward the door. Billy stepped in. Anita's credit was now flagged with a $115,000 outstanding debt. She could not get approved for an apartment lease, a car loan, or even a decent credit card. Russell, it turns out, was living in a studio apartment and driving a leased Honda with 3 months of back payments. His developer lifestyle was completely fake. When Anita moved in with him, his landlord immediately served them both with eviction notices for violating the single occupancy lease. The art world drama reached a whole new level when Anita started telling people I was holding her hostage with fraudulent debt. But Phil's had been proactive. He'd sent copies of all loan agreements to her former internship coordinator along with a formal notice that any defamatory statements would result in additional legal action. Her reputation in the local art scene was getting destroyed. Gallery directors started warning each other about the intern who created toxic drama and made false abuse allegations. A week later, I swung by a gallery showing one of my clients was sponsoring. Was not planning a revenge drop-in just like the artist. But the second I walked in there, she was Anita standing under a pretentious LED sculpture fake laughing. It was awkward for her. A curator I knew nodded at me and said under his breath, "Appreciate the heads up. That could have been a disaster." And then like clockwork, Brooklyn materialized from behind a twisted steel piece like some cursed NPC. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "Enjoying the art." I said, "You should try it sometimes. You're not welcome here, neither is fraud, yet here you are loud as ever." She looked around. 2 guests were clearly watching. No live stream this time, no phone in her hand. Just silence and uncomfortable acrylic lighting. I stayed 10 more minutes, complimented the artist, made small talk with a few sane people. On the way out, I caught Anita fake laughing a little louder to no one in particular. Like she was still trying to sell the illusion, but the gallery was already done buying it. Brooklyn's activism backfired spectacularly. Her live stream videos got reported for harassment, her Instagram account got suspended, and someone posted her parents' address online with a note about trust fund babies pretending to be oppressed. Her parents apparently had a conversation with her about representing the family appropriately and cut off her fund money. The final nail in the coffin came when Megan tried to start a GoFundMe for Anita's recovery from financial abuse. She raised $180 before someone reported it for fraud. Brooklyn shared it with a long caption about mutual aid for survivors, but even her grad school friends could see through the obvious scam. Brooklyn transferred to a different graduate program after her advisor apparently had concerns about her professional judgment and social media presence. The debt collection is ongoing. Phil set up automatic credit reporting, so every month Anita's credit score drops a little more. She'll either have to pay up eventually or declare bankruptcy, which would destroy any chance of ever working in the professional art world. 3 months later, I thought this whole saga was finally over. I'd moved back into my own place and was focused on work. Then came the final confrontation. It was a Friday night and Diego was over at my place. We were playing Call of Duty when my doorbell rang around 9:00 p.m. Pickles immediately started barking. I looked through the peephole, Anita standing there looking like she'd been living rough. "Yo, it's your psycho ex," I told Diego. "No, let her in. I want to watch this train wreck." I opened the door and Anita immediately pushed past me into my apartment like she still lived there. "We need to talk," she screamed. "You ruined my entire life. You need to leave. We have nothing to discuss. I'm homeless because of you. Russell dumped me. My sister will not let me stay at her place anymore. I'm living in my car." Diego paused the game and turned around. "Oh, darn. This is live entertainment." Anita spun around and glared at him. "This is not funny. Your brother destroyed my life over money, and he gave you 6 years of free rent, free car, free everything," Diego shot back. "What's the problem?" "The problem is that he's making me pay him back $115,000. "Should have thought about that before you signed the contracts," I said calmly. "I never thought we'd break up. Those contracts were just formalities. I did love you. Then you dumped me via text for another guy. Actions have consequences." That's when she completely lost it. Started screaming about how Russell dumped her when the eviction notice came. How her sister Megan said she could only stay for a week. How Brooklyn was not returning her calls. "You turned everyone against me. My credit is ruined. No one will rent to me. You're problematic because you tried to steal furniture and claimed I was financially abusing you." I said, "That's not my fault. Diego was having the time of his life. Your ex is having a full meltdown because she found out actions have consequences." "Shut up. This is between me and him. Actually, this is my apartment and you're trespassing." I said, "You need to leave. I'm not leaving until you forgive the debt. I cannot pay it back. I'm working at a coffee shop." That's when Diego pulled his phone. "All right, this situation seems unstable. 911. "Yeah. Hi. I've got an unstable individual at my brother's apartment. She's screaming, refusing to leave, making threats." Anita's eyes went wide. "You called the cops." "The police showed up about 10 minutes later. two officers both looking like they dealt with domestic drama before. "What seems to be the problem here?" the first officer asked. "This woman is my ex-fiancée," I explained calmly. "She's trespassing in my apartment and refusing to leave." "I'm not making a scene," Anita screamed, which immediately proved my point. The second officer looked at her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your voice. He let me in, but, and when you were asked to leave, did you leave? I cannot leave. He's ruining my life." The officers looked at each other. This was clearly not their first crazy ex-girlfriend call. "Ma'am, this sounds like a civil matter. What we have here is a trespassing situation. You need to leave this apartment immediately, but he's financially abusing me." Diego could not help himself. "Officer." She broke up with him via text after 6 years, then tried to keep all the stuff he bought her. Now she's mad that he wants his loans repaid. "Ma'am, you need to leave now or we'll have to escort you out. This is not fair. I have nowhere to go. That's not this gentleman's problem." The first officer said, "You have two choices. Leave voluntarily or leave in handcuffs." "Fine, but this is not over. I'll find a way to fight this." As the officers escorted her toward the door, she started screaming, "You're a monster." The door shut. Diego farted. No one said anything. We just went back to the game. "That was the most entertaining Friday night I've had in years," he muttered. "Your ex just got dragged off like a screeching possum." The next morning, I went to the courthouse and filed for a restraining order, cited the trespassing, the refusal to leave, the threats, and the general unhinged behavior. The judge approved it without hesitation. Anita now legally has to stay at least 100 yards away from me, my home, and my workplace. If she violates it, she goes to jail. Do I feel bad about how it ended? Not even a little bit. She made her choices, and now she gets to live with the consequences. The next weekend, Diego came over with a couple of drinks and an idea. "You know what this situation calls for?" he said, gesturing toward the garage. "A victory lap." I looked at him. "You want to take the Impala out?" "Darn right, I do. We just watched 6 years of finally get flushed down the toilet." He had a point. 20 minutes later, we pulled the cover off the 67 Impala. She looked as beautiful as ever. Diego slid into the passenger seat. Pickles hopped into the back, and I fired her up. That V8 growl echoed through the garage. We pulled out onto the street, and I felt something I had not felt in months. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. No drama, no contracts, no entitled people demanding things they did not earn. You know, Diego said 6 months ago you were engaged to someone who wanted you to sell this car. Now you're free to drive it whenever you want. That's not just dodging a bullet, bro. That's dodging a whole artillery barrage. He was right. If I'd married Anita, the Impala would probably be gone by now, sold for something practical and eco-friendly and boring as heck. Instead, she was safe in my garage, waiting for the next adventure.